a designer and author based in Austin, Texas, and the founder of My House of Design, a graphic design and communication agency. As a certified small business, she collaborates with federal, state, and local government entities, as well as educational institutions, universities, and nonprofits to deliver communication and design solutions. Shaila has authored 6 books, including Saffron Dreams, Beyond the Cayenne Wall, The Doll Whisperer, My Friend Suhana, Ronnie in Search of a Rainbow, and A Manual for
We're just
Marco.
going to be about graphic design. We'll just focus on that career.
Absolutely.
So what does your day-to-day life look like when you're working specifically in your graphic design?
Interesting questions. I would say I devote about 40 to 50 hours to my graphic design business because it is a business in which I work with the federal government, state and local government, cities, universities, and all of that, as I mentioned earlier. At a given time, I could be working on 18 to 20 different projects. I have a team of people who work with me, and they range from illustrators, writers, editors, people who do Section 508 compliance for PDFs. And so there's a lot of project management involved too. So the day would start typically after sending kids to school. Right now, I just have one at home. One is in college, so I don't have to send her anywhere. She sends herself. So the 21-year-old, she manages her own thing. The 11-year-old, there's still a lot of things that need to be done to start her morning. Once she's left for school, then my day begins. When she's back from school, I try to take time off and be with her for a bit. If they're spending work, it's not unusual for me to work in the nights as well. It's not unusual for me to be working the weekends as well. Again, having your own business, that's one of the things about it, right? It's different than working for somebody where, 9 to 5 and you are done. Businesses are not like that typically. And I tend to enjoy mine too much to be away from it for too long.
What type of projects does your company deal with?
There are some such interesting ones that you all would absolutely love. So I work closely with the US Department of Education. And one of the most fun projects that I've been getting from them for the past 3 years is the Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona. He does a bus tour every year. So they go to different states, they stop, they meet with the schools, they meet with universities, they meet with state educators, and then it's a lot about policies. It's about what are the pain points. So they talk and do a lot of these fun things. Our task is to develop an entire bus wrap for his campaign. First of all, we have to come up with the campaign theme. They usually provide us the words for it. We have to visually enhance that and make it into something that looks like, okay, so if it's around college education, then the wrap would look around college education, right? Higher education. So the theme gets determined. We do all of those things for them. Apart from the bus wrap, we also do signage. So when the secretary is visiting a school and he goes in like this conference room and he's presenting, the signage behind him would be the signage we would design. The podium that he's standing on, the podium sign would be something that we would design. So it's an interesting piece of work where we work sometimes directly with him. Apart from that, we work with CDC Foundation a lot. So there are a lot of toolkits we do for them. We do reports for them, handouts for them. Then we have a very interesting contract with the University of Utah Health. For them, we do blogs and infographics and social media. It's a lot of interesting things you do for them, and they keep you busy all month. Apart from that, we do a lot of recreation and parks guides for different cities you may not even have heard of because they're so tiny at places, but about I would say 7 to 8 different guides that would come out every quarter. We have a contract with the city of Shirts to do their monthly magazine every month. It's like a timeline, 15 days, and we put it out. I mean, I could go on, but there are very interesting projects, and that makes your work life a lot of fun.
What sort of people do you work with for graphic design? Like not people who you collaborate with externally, but people in your company as well?
Who are the people you're saying?
Yes. What sort of people do you work with?
Like
Oh,
as
Or,
jobs.
yeah, as jobs, careers.
Okay. So, since I'm a sole proprietor, I do not have employees, but I work with subcontractors. That's what they're called. So when I have a piece of work, for instance, if I get like a 5-year contract, then I would assemble a team of people working on that project. Oftentimes, it is like I would have an illustrator, I would have some production artists, I would have concept designers, sometimes I would have photographers, and then I would have a Section 508 person if needed. Now, Section 508 is an accessibility standard that federal government asks for. Not every project needs that. Not every project needs a photographer either. For instance, I'll give you an example of one of the contracts we had for over 4 years. It was with the Sam Houston State University. And we would put together their undergrad recruiting materials for them, about 22 different pieces. For that piece of work, it would start with a discovery meeting with the client, and then we would put together a theme for the year. The theme would be a written creative statement about what this year's theme would be like. Then we would visually translate it into artwork. We would get approvals at every stage from the government, from the university. After that, we would start doing some concept work. In the midst of all that, we would go actually to Sam Houston State University and shoot actual pictures, actual photos, which meant coordinating the schedules of hundreds of students and matching them up with different students and shooting in different parts of the campus. Then we would take those original photos and we would put them in our concepts and show it to the client. After that, we would start designing the 22 different pieces. In the end, we did Section 508 compliance on all of them so that they could put it online and they would be accessible to people who are visually disabled. So if you can just gather from that how many different people were involved in this process. In this process, we also had an art director who coordinated the photo shoot while the photographer was taking actual pictures. This art director would guide this person based on all the notes that I had provided. I want this picture here, I want that picture here. In this picture, we need these props and all of that kind of information. So some of these kind of projects would be like 4 months long, right? For instance, if you're doing an infographic for University of Utah, it may just take maybe a week, and it would just involve 2 people. One is a writer and one is a designer, right? But the project manager still has to make sure everything is fitting in the puzzle, right?
The CEO of your business, how much collaboration and what other skills does it require to be successful?
As a CEO or as a designer?
I guess the CEO of your business, because you have to run the entire show.
Yes. So being a CEO involves a whole lot of skills that I never went to school for. For instance, project management. Never went to school for it, never learned it from anywhere. It is something that I had to teach myself. Nowadays, you have classes for those. When you are very new in your career, for instance, if I tell you that around 27 years ago, when I started my business, it was just a freelance business, right? Of one person. I didn't have a team. I didn't have any of that. So everything just grew from that point. One computer, one person, your mind. That's how it started. That's the business, right? And whatever I learned, the reason it makes me somebody who knows my business in and out is because I have worked on every piece of it, right? So I understand that this particular project is going to take a day, this one is going to take 2 months, this is going to take 30 days, so I have an idea and I know the skills and labor required for each one of those pieces. So I think for a CEO of this kind of business to be successful, they need to have done it themselves. It's very important. You cannot just go in and say, hey, now I'm going to be the CEO of a graphic design firm. You won't know the ABCs of it. And design is something you really have to go to school for, because the design principles, the principle of how you balance a design, when you look at a flyer, what are the different pieces in it, right? Is the content supporting the visuals and the other way around? Are the most important things visible clearly? What is the call to action? Those all kind of things you need to have gone to design school for. And the aesthetics of what you're doing is very important. So one of my biggest challenge as a CEO was finding people who could design like me. And my designs are very different. They are like, so if I'm doing work for the government, the designs are gonna not look like things that government puts out. One of the reasons they like me is because I do things out of the box for them. They still look professional, but they can stand the test of time, which is something you have to really think, not based on the samples they've provided, but how to take it to the next level for them. So that, 3 years, 4 years from now, these designs are still going to be relevant for them. So for that particular thing, as a CEO, you need to also have the knowledge of design principles. You need to know what a good design looks like. You need to know how it's going to support the other pieces. For instance, if you're doing a campaign, you design one piece really well, but it doesn't translate into 20 different campaign pieces that would be done, then it's not a good design for that particular project. So there are a lot of these kind of intricate things that you learn as you go. In our line of work, they always say this: education isn't as important as your portfolio. What have you done? How have you grown? You yourself, like I've trained my kids to do it too. When I am looking for a freelancer and I put a call out, I get 700 resumes. Do I have time to go through 700 resumes? I don't. My 21-year-old would sit and go through it. And you know what she does? Hey, does this look like something my mom would like? Right? She is learning that skill. She's like, does it match what she does? Would she be impressed with it? And then she comes back and says, hey, mom, I think there are some promising ones here. And you know how many would be from those 700? Maybe 4 or 5. Maybe 4 or 5, right? They have at least developed that eye for it. But to go beyond that, once you've selected a freelancer to work with you, good design isn't as important as them keeping their timelines. They need to be communicating well. They need to know how to take feedback well. One of the biggest challenges when you become a designer, that a lot of students, when they go into professional life, find it very difficult, is to take criticism. Because that will happen. Criticism is not criticism, it's a desire to make a piece better. So you have to take it very positively in an effort to work with your client to make something really good that works for them. So you should be open to being critically evaluated for whatever you've done. So in other words, if you don't have a thick hide, you cannot go in this line of work. You would be burnt out, right? Even now, I can sit with a client and the client would say, hey, this is a disaster. This is not what I asked for. What do? You don't lose your composure. You ask them, okay, what do you think is wrong with this? How can I make it better? Oftentimes it's 1 or 2 elements adjustment and they are like happy with it, right? But what did they say initially? This is a disaster, right? You got to understand their perspective too. They do not understand design. You understand design, but they also know what their target audience is, right? So they will always be wanting to have something that would work for them. So we need to figure out a way to get them to accept a good design that meets their requirements too. Again, design education is very important for that reason.
So one of the main reasons we started this initiative is so we knew what type of classes to take in high school. So for your job, is there any specific classes or skills that you would recommend knowing?
Yeah, so a couple of years of graphic design classes would be really good, even if as a student, you take some graphic design classes in high school, that would also help you learn the design principles. They would at least start you on that journey. Again, then beyond that, it is what you do in your spare time too. Are Are you working on enhancing it? Because school would teach you as much, but what school teaches you will be a springboard for you to learn more skills, right? In your days, like not in our time, but now, I mean, you can go through YouTube tutorials. There is so much education regarding graphic design that's out there for free from good colleges too. So that is never going to be something that, even if you don't take graphic design in high school, but you're still passionate about it, you can do it on the side too over summer as well.
What are some rewarding moments that you've had in your career?
Rewarding moments in my career. There have been many, but one of the ones that I remember thinking that this was really rewarding is sometimes working with freelancers who are really struggling in life, who are recently migrated, and finding that they know how to do this and they design better than any other seasoned professionals, and having a chance to work with them that also changes their life in return, the most rewarding experience. And then using your design to help others, that is very rewarding too. You do some pro bono work for some organizations that would bring you joy. Anytime you can serve others in your career where you are helping them in something that you're good at professionally and that helps their life, then I mean, it's very rewarding. And one of the other ways to start your career too is doing some pro bono work. So if you are a freshly graduated graphic design person and you're thinking, hey, I'm not catching any breaks, this is what I did 30 years ago when I moved to the US and I learned some computer work around the softwares. I would literally call up organizations or just walk up to print shops and say, hey, I'll do some work for free. How about you give me a chance? You'll see the strengths. And one of the projects that I got at that time, I remember it was the Writers League of Texas. They had a website and their website didn't function very well. So I called them up and I said, I'll design your website for free. And they were just floored. They're like, we'll give you like membership for life if you do that. And I said, yeah, I don't want any money for it. So I designed their website, not thinking what would happen. Interesting thing happened after. So, a lot of authors are members of Writers League of Texas. So when they would call the organizations and ask, hey, do you know any good web designer? Guess what they would say? So I ended up designing websites for over 70 different authors and writers. And all because of that one website, which I didn't even think that, it would lead to anything more than that. But, anytime you do something for others, it just, unfolds in mysterious ways and you have to be open to it. This career isn't like, you become a doctor, you save lives, you're saving bad designs from finding a home, right? So it's different, right? But one of the biggest advantage of having this business for me is that it allows me to set 30% of my time to be able to help others. And by helping others, there are things that I really am passionate about doing is, helping people who are struggling to find jobs, help them find jobs. They recently migrated to US. They don't know the way things work, orienting them, making them resumes, helping them find opportunities that line up with their interests and, starting their career. And that is something this business allows me to do on the side. So I'm very grateful for that.
Okay, kind of taking a different side of your career, what are some challenges you face while working as a graphic designer?
So yes, initially, finding work was one of the biggest challenge, right? So anytime you start any kind of business, you have to give it some time for it to take roots. The way I did this business was in a very interesting way. I always had a daytime job and I would do this on the side, this running of business. So minimizing, the risk involved. So I always did this, just Daytime job, evening, weekends. And when my child started going to school, my goal was, hey, and she comes from elementary school, I need to be home. So I went part-time at my day job and upped my business, right? And I kept doing that for a while. Then in 2015, I quit my daytime job and upped my freelancing to a very serious business, right? What are the challenges I've encountered along the way? COVID was one of the biggest challenges we had encountered, not because I was suddenly without work. I actually had a lot of work during that time too, but I wasn't used to working with the whole house in here, right? Like people used to leave, like Monday morning, the house would be empty. I could work. Now everybody was here. I mean, you have young kids, they need a lot of snacks, I found out during the day. So there were those kind of things. I felt like I was distracted a lot. I was pulled away a lot. And then what happened, one of the blessings of COVID, I figured out a way to work with all the distractions. So even that challenge became kind of something that you could overcome, because this is sometimes mechanical in nature, creative in nature. Oftentimes distractions can just melt away too, when you're doing this kind of work. So that was one of the challenges. Let me think about any other challenges. I can't think of any other challenges, but again, it's also the mindset. What may appear as challenges, I may not register because I enjoy this so much. But one of the challenges that a person like me would tell you about is, how do you find work? One of the questions you all haven't asked yet: how do you market your work? How do you get business, right? Is it in your list?
Yeah.
So that is one of the biggest challenge that a CEO of a company would face. This particular business works in many very different ways. So the way it works is, government would put out something called RFPs. They are called request for proposals. So government would say, hey, here's a PDF of our RFP proposal. You look at it and you respond to it. Okay, so this would be an intense effort. You would look at all of their requirements and you have to put together a proposal that normally is like 30 to 40 pages. So it talks about what you can do, how you can help them, what have you done in the past, who are your references, what certifications do you have, what does your portfolio look like, how are you going to help us do this work, right? So every one of those proposals takes between 3 to 6 hours. And that is something you have to be constantly doing. So any given day, I would have a calendar going on that says, okay, these things are due, and I know what I have to work on. That is just me. Nobody else does that work but me, because I understand what I need to do. So if I'm doing something, some pieces of work that have like a 5-year cycle or a 2-year cycle, a 3-year cycle or a 1-year cycle, I have to be prepared for the next one when I don't have that work, right? So you have to constantly be in that cycle. Challenges are, sometimes you will not win those proposals, right? So at first, my success rate was 6%. Now it's 20%. So the success rate gets better the more you win these awards. They're called awards, but they're really contracts, okay? It is said that you got a contract award, but that's what it means. But again, you're constantly competing with a bunch of graphic design firms, and you have to find a way to separate yourself from the rest. So that's one of the biggest challenges. Somehow, I don't think of it as a challenge because I've been doing it for too long, right?
Aspects like AI and things like that, how do you think your career will evolutionize?
Right. It's a very valid question and something we're still looking for answers for. So it would take us a while until we figure out how AI is going to help us, hinder us, or lessen our business, right? So in terms of this search and discovery that we are on right now, this is what we've found out. Certain elements of our business would never be replaced. For instance, it is very hard for AI to figure out the following. You have a client. Who are their competitors? What do their materials look like? What are the conversations that you've had with them have told you about this particular project's goal, scope, importance, and future success. Then we take all that information and we give them a design that doesn't look like anything they have seen before or anything we've done before. That's where AI would have some challenges, right? Because we do not, so our entire business is based on custom designs. They're not cookie cutter designs. For instance, it's not like, okay, we grab this template and we match it up and this, here you go. It's not like that. For every single client, we do all this research with them. We do these conversations with them. We figure out a whole plan for them, even if it's like a one-page flyer, right? So this one-page flyer, we would look at it, we would study it, we would find information about it beyond what the client has told us. Then we would look at it and analyze it. Okay, you don't want to just, just drop it running text. We will pull out information, make infographics. We'll pull out information, make a sidebar. We'll pull out information, make a quote. Suddenly it's looking pretty amazing. Can AI do all of that? Not right now. Not for a very long time. Maybe at some point, it'll give us tools to assist us to do that work in some capacity. For instance, it could tell me, oh, you want a quote box here? Here are the different ways to make it look amazing, right? Pieces of it, it may be able to help. Now, the areas where I think they would be replaced or greatly reduce the ability for us to go for freelancers is editing, proofreading. So editing, proofreading is a service we provide to the government. I feel like a lot of portions of that, not original writing, but editing, proofreading portions may in the time to come. They're not that robust right now, but they may get there faster than the design would. That's one area. The second area is the Section 508 compliance, which is a very expensive service that the government pays for. I feel like some of that work can be done by AI in future. Again, another 5 years or so.
Lastly, do you think being a graphic designer is a career to consider?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always talk about this story that, my household where we had 4 siblings, right? One became a doctor, the other became a nurse, the third one did an MBA. And I told my family, I am going to draw, and my father said, yes, let's do it. So in those days, he had no idea what the potential was for a graphic design career. We didn't know anybody around us. But my father and mother, my parents put their faith in whatever I wanted. They didn't make the bottom line into, hey, how much are you going to be earning at the end of all this? They made it a priority that what I wanted, I should be able to do so there are no regrets in life, which I think is an amazing thing to do at a time when we don't understand these kind of unconventional careers. And how now, when they're in their 80s, I constantly thank them for letting me do this, is because I have had an amazing life with an amazing career. And I was able to do so much for my family because I had a career that I could do from anywhere. It made a world of difference in our lives. COVID didn't matter either. We were constantly busy doing work. Whereas the doctor sibling had to go into the hospital to work during the COVID. Not that there is anything wrong with that, right? But what I am saying is, when we let children decide a career of what they want to do, what they're passionate about, understand that, they're going to be spending almost 10 hours of their everyday life, like work days, devoted to that career. If you count the time they take time to dress up and, go to the work and come back, 8 hours of work and the rest commuting and preparation, right? You gotta feel passionate about that career. It can't be something that's forced upon you. It has to be something that energizes you, makes you happy, makes you want to get up and go to work, makes you want to make a difference, right? So that is what I think that, is a great thing about this career. Graphic design, I mean, again, it's a good career for somebody who's passionate about design, who doesn't mind being critiqued for their work, right? They need to feel passion for this. Then it's a great career for them.
Thank you so much for taking the time off of your Sunday to come meet with us. We've learned so much about your careers, and they're not careers that are spoken about a lot, but we've learned a lot, and it was very informative. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for meeting with me today. I really enjoyed listening to all of your questions, very interesting questions, and I hope you learned a lot.
Here are our takeaways. Offering pro bono services provides practical experience and networking opportunities, effectively jumpstarting your career. To be successful as a CEO of a graphic design firm, you should know how to do the job yourself in order to provide useful insights and feedback. One of the biggest challenges as a CEO is finding people who think the same way you do. A challenge as a designer is creating designs that won't become outdated. As a designer, you should understand the basic design principles. You can look up to good courses online to further your skills. When designing, it is important to understand how your art will resonate with the client or viewer. Your client has a specific vision in mind when they come to you. They want to make art, so work for them. You need to understand their feedback in order to accomplish their goal. A big challenge as a CEO is finding work or projects to complete.
Hey guys, hope you learned something new from this video. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and share with all your friends. Bye!